It's going online. So we're doing the follow established. Thank you. Good morning. We're doing following established person-centered behavior support. This is I really like the subject, and I've got some really nice little videos that I'm going to be sharing with you through the morning. And I hope this will be really helpful when you work in the community, because you're probably already finding that you've got quite a bit of behavior management.
Not too much.
Not too much yet. Yeah. A big part of our job is behavior management. And that is why a lot of care workers do burn out, because, you know, when you continuously are trying to manage somebody else's behavior, it can become really exhausting. So within this subject, as I worked in aged care for so many years, and specifically in dementia, I have found that you really, really have to watch your mental health when it comes to behavior management or working with people with mental health issues. Yeah, so we'll, no, wish this thing would communicate with it. So objective of this is to apply a person-centered approach to minimize behaviors of concern, know how to review behaviors of concern, learn how to provide positive behavior support according to individualized behavior support plans, understand how to complete documentation, and gain the skills and knowledge required for this unit. So chapter 1.1 is support the person to maintain their activities of daily living in accordance with organization policies and procedures and the individualized behavior support plan. I actually have a behavior support plan I will share with you tomorrow that I've got from one of the community companies that they develop. They normally do the behavior support plans in like a conference. So they sit with the family members that are involved and yourself and some managers or some of the care workers, house managers, to draw up the plan. And in the plan, and we will do one tomorrow, is what can you do if a client has certain behaviors. So then they'll give you those options. So we have spoken about the social model of disability. Again, it means taking responsibility for understanding how to include disabled people as the stakeholders in all mainstream work, and looking for ways to support their participation in a community life. So providing access is the main idea behind the social model of disability, or providing them the opportunity to partake in anything that are so I'll play a little video that is going to cover a bit of the social model of disability.
I always felt being a disabled person was a problem. After learning about social model, it challenged me to look at disability completely differently. I myself was able to gain some confidence and self-esteem.
Social model basically says we are people with impairments, and those impairments clearly have an impact on how we live our lives. But the impairments are not things which disable us.
I'm disabled by the world around me, and if the world was more accessible, I would be less disabled, and then I would just be left with my impairment, i.e. what doesn't work. It's not that my legs don't work that's disabling me, it's the fact that if I want to, if I'm on a flat surface, I can wheel around fine, I'm one thing happy. It's only when I come up to a flight of stairs.
As a wheelchair user, you have a slightly easier job of explaining the social model. Whereas if you're trying to explain the less physical barriers, it's much harder.
Barriers everywhere, to do with how we communicate, to do with people's attitudes.
Discovering the social model actually was a massive liberation on another level. Yeah, I was being treated differently, and no, it wasn't me being deficient, it was everybody else's social anxiety that were being projected onto me.
The blame for you not fitting in It's no longer on your shoulders.
Suddenly, my disability is out there and not in here. It was what made me realise that I was something beyond the thing that other people thought I was.
It's a real liberating thing, but it also means you can change it. We can say to the world, look, you must put a lift in this building. You must make sure that the signage is readable for people with vision impairment.
If you want that equality to be real, you've really got to then tackle the inequality people are experiencing in schools, in workplaces, with transport.
The main reason that the social model, I think, is important to disabled people is that it allows us to be a community. You achieve a whole lot more as a group,
As long as we, as disabled people, make sure our voices are heard, and that all those people that support us also have their voices heard. I think we will get there.
I hope that Scope is doing work that will help disabled people to become prouder of who we are, pushing boundaries around who can be included and where.
We just with a reference to what it means to see or
Find out more about Scope's work and how to get involved by clicking below to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
I always.
So supporting people and to maintain their daily living activities is one of our main job roles when we go out there, is just to help them to what they call the ADLs, activities of daily living. If you ever go for an interview and they try to trip you up, that's just as simple as that. Just everything we will do every day for ourselves, we are there to support other people in that. To establish successful activities and routines that promote positive behavior and behavior support plans, to provide an effective map for managing and supporting this process. The main reason why activities of daily living is so important is because, and we will talk a bit about that a bit later again, but I'm just going to mention it, is because 95% of all behaviors is because of the person trying to communicate a need. So if they're trying to say to you, I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm thirsty, I'm dirty, I need to go to the toilet, they can't communicate, they might communicate with a behavior of concern. So that's why I'm focusing on that.
Challenging behaviors, that's how we see it. They're misbehaving, they have problem behaviors. We've got to do something about this. Now I'm going to call a timeout right now, because the biggest problem we have right here is you've already identified the source of the behavior. You're pretty sure it's them and what they're doing. Timeout. You need to take a step back and realize this is much more complicated than you think. And instead of being such a strong judge and jumping to conclusions, what I want you to do is back off and reframe this. I want you to realize that they're doing the very best they can to try to communicate with you, to meet a need, to express that they aren't liking what you're doing. And unfortunately, you simply see it as not getting your way. What you don't realize is that you started this very frequently in your effort to be helpful. Let me just say to you, you weren't as helpful as you thought you were. I didn't really enjoy the help you gave me. I didn't get it. So you have a choice right now. Are you going to continue to push your agenda to try to get where you want? Or can you take that step back and go, okay, well, this isn't working. Let me rethink. So what you want to do when you experience a behavior you're not liking, you need to, take that step back, take a deep breath, let it go, and realize now it's time to kick in the front of your brain and to become a really good detective. Try to figure out what might be driving what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, and what they're feeling. What maybe you're smelling and they're not picking up on, what they're tasting versus what you would be tasting. Because what you want to do is realize that you need to see it from their side. And once you see it from their side, you try to be in their shoes, figure this out. Suddenly, when you see things, hear things, experience things differently, and you make that choice, that decision to do that, the uh-oh becomes an aha, because you can start to realize it's the setting, it's the care, it's the gem. It's who they were before this all started. There's lots of pieces to the puzzle. Your job, if you want to do this well and do this over the course of this condition, is to stop the judgment, time yourself out, and reframe this behavior. Go from a challenging and frustrating, I just don't understand why she's doing this, to pausing for yourself, getting some help, maybe getting somebody else to take a look with you, because maybe you just can't see it because of who you are and how it works. But what you're going to do is take that step back, look more broadly, and at that point, make a decision. What are they trying to do? Are they communicating an unmet physical need? There's basically 5 of them you want to learn about. Or an unmet emotional need. Or are you seeing the emotional need, but you're missing the physical need? Or was it something that is happening in the environment or happened earlier today? As I said, complicated. So you need some training. You need to know what's going on and what's not going on, so you can quit sitting in judgment and start using this. That's the best tool. That and your ability to bring people together to help you. So with challenging behaviors, it's not about them. It's about us and what we choose to do about this effort to communicate an unmet need, and helping us figure out what is the need and how can we better meet it for success for both of us. Making a positive difference because we choose positive approach to the care. Now remember this lady? What do you think she's doing? You see her beating on the chairs, making noise, annoying people, and you know she needs to go to the bathroom. It's been a long time. You've tried to make her stop, but she won't. What if I told you she used to clean houses for a living? I'm going to try substitution and a positive approach rather than trying to make her quit. Miss Leona. Get my hand out the way. You're trying to get it clean. Here, try this. She's a busy woman. There you go. I'm going to try a substitution here. I'll trade you. Not yet. Show her. Rub it with that. Can you rub it? Yeah. Here, rub it. Getting there. Trade me. Trade. Trade me. Here you go. Take this. All right, give it. You got it. Now trade out. There you go. Ta-da. Now rub it. Now I show her. There she goes. There we go. People are less annoyed, not so much noise. And she's cleaning. I want to reinforce it. That's good. That's good. 2 more to go. I still haven't met. You're doing a fantastic job. Her unmet need. 1 more substitution. Nicely done, Leona. She needs to get finished with this. Boy, you are good. So we can move on. You did this one? Watch me, I'm sneaky. That's it. Good. Good. I visually eliminate the task. Whoa. Woo. That is beautiful. You did a fantastic job. Man, you're a good cleaner. Here. Thank you. All right, well, come with me and we'll sit down and take a break. Oh, brother. I know you're ready for one, aren't you? Now, before she goes to sit down, though, we have a place to go. Oh, girl, you worked hard. You are one of the hardest working women I've ever met. Well, Lord knows. Let's go to the ladies before we sit down. Okay. Okay. We changed the challenge to success.
I really love this woman. You need to go and watch some of her videos. She is just amazing. If I can choose to do, it's a real scenario. Yeah, yeah. So you know, her name is Tipa Snow, and yeah, I can choose to do anything. Tipa, T-E-E-P-A, Snow, S-N-O-W. She's American. She's a diversional therapist. And she makes a lot of videos on dementia. Now, dementia because dementia is such a umbrella term, there's so many different things that can go wrong with the brain. It kind of covers a lot of our mental disabilities, our mental and psychological disabilities, because of the different areas of the brain that is affected by it. So, but with the developing plans, this is the type of things we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at, what is the needs people may have. I had a dress I was wearing on Saturday that had a little, I don't know, it's like a tiny little plastic something in the seam, and it was and this dress annoyed me every time I wear this dress. I like halfway through the day, it just irritated me so badly that I never wear the dress. So on Saturday before I put it on first, and it was scratching me, and I thought no, and I had to use a magnifying glass to find this piece of, and it was sometimes I use the plastic sewing or the see-through thread to sew, and it was a piece of that was so it was literally a thread, but it was the tiniest little bit, and I had to pick it out and pull and pick it out, and it wasn't affecting the seam, but for some reason it was there. And then I could wear the dress the whole day without being irritated. So if specifically when you work with people with autism, they're very sensory. So if there are little tiny things like that, they will, be agitated, and for you to try to figure out what is the reason why they're being agitated. So within the plans, that will reflect things like the person is a very sensory person. And if a normal person like me, well, normal's overrated, but if an average person get irritated by small things like that, how much more people that have got already a disability in that area, how much more would that irritate them? So in these plans, we will identify the support required for this person and the family to address the unmet needs. This will include factors such as redesigning the environment, acquisition of skills, and challenging systems in place. To try to work out how do we deal with these behaviors and why are they there and how can we do better.
This is Raphael. He's been diagnosed with OCD. Here is one example.
I told you to open this.
I did open it.
No, you didn't.
It's open.
No, it's not.
This is open. Look.
And the little white sticks along there.
There's chocolate cookie right there.
Look, this is not open.
I understand you, fella.
No, right here. Yeah.
Right there.
You want me to take this off?
This off.
This.
Yeah.
We'll just scoop it into another bowl.
Are you going to be able to eat it if I don't take it off?
You do take it off. You can.
It's completely open, Raphael. You can eat it.
Not yet.
Yes,
See,
yes,
this is
no. You can eat it right now.
not yet. See, this is shut.
No. Look.
Oh, don't pick it out. You're not going to pick it out.
It's open. Yeah. If it wasn't open, I wouldn't be able to get it.
You're not going to do that in the chocolate pudding.
Look.
No. You don't do that in the chocolate pudding.
Get your spoon and put it in there.
I got it.
Yeah. Okay, now eat it.
Not yet after I open
But
it.
honey, it's open. There's nothing there. Look on the other side. Look underneath of it. See, there's nothing here. It's a lip. You could cut it off and it wouldn't matter because the chocolate pudding is in the middle. See?
Yeah. You
You're
don't
violating my finger.
I said.
Well, you're violating my finger there. Okay, go ahead and eat your chocolate pudding.
You don't do that in the chocolate pudding.
I think you'll be just fine. Don't you? You think you'll be just fine?
Yeah.
All right, take a bite. I want to make sure it's open all the way. Take a bite.
Can you please open it like this?
No,
Just like me?
it really won't happen because we're trying not to
It
do
will
that.
happen.
We're not trying to do that, okay?
We're trying to do that.
We're not trying to do that. We opened the pudding. We opened it. It's open. You can put your spoon in it and you can put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
And that little piece of paper is not going to control your whole life.
It's gonna control my whole life.
No, it's not.
Yes,
It's really not.
it is.
It's insignificant.
It's going to.
Don't think about it.
Don't think about it, Mommy.
Just eat your chocolate pudding. Don't think about that piece of paper. Nobody cares about that piece of paper.
You don't do that in this chocolate pudding.
Yeah, we just care about the chocolate pudding. Right?
You don't care about that chocolate pudding.
We care about the chocolate pudding.
No, we don't.
We don't care about that paper. That paper has nothing to do with us. It's just being there and wants to be left alone. So leave it alone and eat your chocolate pudding. Is it good?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yes, you do. This little minion that you take away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please subscribe to your channel and then
There's heaps of little videos about this little fellow also. He's got a little sister and yeah, and his parents are recording his OCD. It's really, yeah, it's some, we can smile about it, but it's poor little fellow. He's, it's like, just already scratched that off. Yeah. And but OCD is a real thing as well. Some people are really controlled by that. And my mum was OCD and she would stand and wipe a table.
I've seen one that's, I think, 15, 16 hours clean on the day. The mum does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just wipes the table and then the tiniest little speck and then she'll wipe again, and it's like, can you already move on to something else? And what happened with her, she falls behind in doing other things because she's so, fixated on what she's doing that other things, and then it becomes overwhelming because it's just too much to do.
You probably walk in the house and sit down with us at a polished table.
Yeah, just that's the only thing that's clean. So chapter 1.2, consider the person's individual needs, their strengths, their capabilities, preferences, and when engaging in activities of daily living routines. The person-centered approach is what we did before last week when we did when we did the care plan. We looked at the person-centered approach. So the behavior support plan will be attached to the care plan. The care plan we did on unit 15 was more focused on physical needs, but the behavior support plan looks very similar to that, and it will be attached if it's needed. It's not always needed for everyone, but specifically if you've got people with autism, dementia, acquired brain injury, that type of thing, you'd have that. So it's a type of approach of care that focuses on viewing each of the clients as an individual. By understanding the focusing of the individual's interests, needs, strengths, and preferences, you can deliver a much more person-tailored service. This strength-based approach, as we did in DIS001 2 weeks ago, we are the opportunity to move away from looking at what the person can't do, then focusing on what they are capable to do. This is known as a strength-based approach. So in general, when we know more, for example, older people with dementia, if we know more about their history, it helps us to understand some of their behaviors. We had a guy that used to run around and throw water everywhere he went. He was just would take a cup, fill it up, and then he just kept walking. He always just walks around, and we have like a what's it called, like a courtyard, and there's actually 2 courtyards in the dementia ward, but he would go around this courtyard and he'd come in and then he just like an 8, and then he just kept doing that and he just throw water everywhere. And we have a lot of residents with wheelie walkers and walking sticks, and that's really dangerous also. And then his wife said, oh yeah, he used to be a marathon runner. You know, and then like, oh, okay. And then we got him a couple of those little bottles with the, you know, with the valve in. So even if he throws the bottle, it doesn't make such a big mess. So, you know, and that's how you focus on some of their strengths, or you find out what is the reason behind it, why are they doing that. Engaging people in activities, know the client, input the expectations, provide freedom for their beliefs, their goals, and finding purpose. You know, just because they have it. It's like having you know,
It's like
living
giving
a
them purpose itself too.
yeah, and living a life
Um,
really that is worth living, I suppose, you know, because quite often people, specifically if you have a family member that has dementia, you go, oh, the person's not there anymore that you used to know. But then that person still can have a full life, even though they may not remember us or may not remember their family. It's about them enjoying their life. You know, we had one lady, she's apparently still alive. She would just walk around singing all day. She doesn't remember her family or anything, but she just, the whole day long, she's always got a little sway to her. In herself, she's a really happy person, you know. So it doesn't mean just because you're not like like your family remember you, or you're not like the rest of society, that you can't be happy and have a fulfilled life. And that's by, you know, trying to discover these type of things, what can make their life, what can make it for them worth living, you know, have purpose in some or other way. You know, I think in the Western world we miswrote and misread um, purpose. For us, purpose is about having a degree or having a fancy job or fancy car, but really purpose is about being happy. And you can have that within in your family, or you know, a grandma might have that with the joy of her grandchildren, or you know, somebody else might have the joy of having a beautiful garden, and that is like everything they live for. They like really enjoy being outside there, listening to the birds and seeing the flowers grow and whatever, you know. And it's finding those little things for people to make it worthwhile, you know, make it their life interesting and full. So applying this, helping us identify problems with engaging or motivating the person and seeking appropriate assistance. So obviously people with behaviors of support, behaviors of concern, obviously have find it hard to identify, you know, with some people, or actually the other way around. Most of the time it's the people that are like looking at this person. Why is she suddenly just shouting? Why she keeps changing her clothes? Why is she hoarding things? Why is she, you know, repeating the same word over and over? Why is she cleaning that table over and over? You know, and that annoys us more than what it annoys them, really. So also problems with engaging, you know, engaging can also be that the clients are emotional, they're not feeling well. So these are really the things that we identify why they're having this behavior. You know, coming behind, like put that investigator cap on and say, well, is she emotional? Is she not feeling well? Is she not enjoying what she's doing? You might go to activity and they just not participating, you know, or they acting out. You take them into a group and you're playing, and they love doing that, the lawn bowls, and taking them there, and the client's not enjoying it. They're throwing the ball, so they throw the ball at somebody else, and you think, oh, okay, maybe they don't like that person, but maybe it's like they don't like the activity. I have no ball sense, so don't ask me to play tennis or throw a ball. I just, you know, I don't like sports. I always joke is that it's not part of my religion. So don't take me to sporty things if I'm demented one day, you know. It's not, I just don't like it. And I might act out if you do start forcing me into things like that, you know. If the environment is unfamiliar, some people get really anxious if they just don't know what's going on, where they are. My eldest son is a bit like that. When we traveled from the UK, we were flying and we were going in all these big airports, going into Dubai and, coming into Brisbane. And he was really anxious the whole way. He would just act the whole time. He would go, do you know where you're going? Do you know where you're going? And just calm down. I might not know exactly where to go, but I can read. But because he's autistic and he's just in this place that it's just so many people around and it's just his anxiety is just up there. So yeah, completely. So then with cognitive disorders, those are the things I can't understand. They just don't know what's going on. Or then physical disorders like, some other something irritating them. Yes. Can I put the camera on you? No? Okay, I'll just pause it. But that is really where you connect with somebody. Like if you are honest and open with the person of where you are at, and that is the connection you form. And as I said, I'm sure you've heard me say before, many people will ask you, how did you get that right? But it's all about treating that person as an individual, treating that person as a person, because quite often people treat people with disability as an object. They're coming at them, they're not with them, they're not, they don't take my arm, I'm here, I'm in it with you, and treat that person. And like Shana shared before with your friends as well, treating them like they're just another person, not treating them like they're different, because they feel alienated if you treat them different. And that can be a big trigger for behaviors of concern, is if you're coming at somebody and you treat them like almost like you're looking down at them. And it's funny, and people, and that's, or like with babies, with older people, they pick that up. It's funny, my mom as well, she used to have what we almost would say like a sixth sense about people's attitudes towards her, and she'd say to me, I don't like that person. I'll go, why? Mom's such a nice person. No, they didn't look me in the eye, or they didn't greet me. That's what people do. They actually ignore the person with disability and talk to the care worker, like they don't exist. And my mum used to pick that up, and that used to make her like immediately don't want anything to do with that person, because they, ignore her because she's squint. She's got her eyes squint, and you can see there's something wrong with her. She's got a mental disability, and people used to treat her different. And she picked it up, and they pick it up. We really need to be so cautious of treating them differently, because that will set them off. That will really make them feel like you are looking down at them, or you don't respect them for an individual, for who they are. So again, it's really part of the social model of disability. It dictates that the disability is a result of us, the way we treat people, by treating them differently. And rather than they just have impairment, they're just different, like you won't know looking at me that I've got a hearing impairment, and you would look at somebody, and sometimes those things are invisible disabilities. You wouldn't looking at me know that I'm dyslexic. You just won't know, but that's an impairment. And I've found lots of things, lots of aids and assistance to help me. When I was in school, I thought I was stupid. I thought I was stupid until I was 47 when I first started studying, and I thought, oh, no, I'm not too bad at this. I'm actually getting through this. And I'm realizing, using aids, using my phone, using Grammarly and things like that I can actually do it. But because we are so branded by society, and we brand disability, and we look at people so differently, we are the ones that are disabling them. The school were the one that disabled me from studying when I was younger. because my teachers taught me, oh, you stupid, you can't read or you can't write, you know, that's what they do. That's what they do. And like, oh, you can't go to university, you can never have an OP score, you can't, don't even try to do those hard subjects, you know, just take practical ones. So things are decided for us. And those are indirectly the same thing we do with somebody who's actually got a visual disability, somebody that you can actually see they are in a wheelchair, or their face is slightly misformed, or they've got a speech impairment, you know, things that we can see, and then we treat them differently. There may be nothing wrong with their brain, you know, and they will pick up. And even if there's something, you know, if they does have a mental impairment, it still doesn't mean that they're not intelligent in a different area, you know. So the impact of social devaluation is exactly what I'm talking about on the individual's quality of life. You know, how our social devaluation is when we as a group attribute low or no value to an individual as a group, or the basis of certain characteristics that's unusual or different. When we treat somebody else that they are less just because they have a disability, it's shocking, you know. You guys won't be here if you thought that, but society does think that. And if you go out there, you almost have to carry the disability rights with you, laminate it and stick it into people's faces sometimes, because they just don't, oh no, this person can't come in here. You know, they will upset, they will rock our apple cart. We just can't have that, you know. So yeah, we really have to also advocate for our clients in that sense. But again, if you can walk in there and you immediately connect with that person by actually acknowledging that person, you'll have so much success in working with those people. And those behaviors of concern might not even feature. When I worked in the high dementia care, I never had issues. Not never, but most of the time I didn't have issues. The clients were all settled because I knew all of them. I knew where they were at. It's hard work because you have to be on top of your game, you know. You knew where they were at. You knew if they're happy. You knew if they were frustrated and irritated or tired, or they needed to go to the toilet, or they were dirty, or, you know, something's not up. The only time I had issues was when I wasn't at a good place, when I was tired or I was over emotional. Then they like feed off you like that. And then the behaviors start, you know, they just know. They know they pick up on your emotions, they pick up on your attitude. So really that's very, very important. So providing a safe environment for the person to contribute to positive and adaptive responses, chapter 1.4. Safe environments are the predictable environments, you know, that have familiar people present. Again, most of the behaviors we found we had in dementia was when there was new staff, or there was new clients in the facility specifically, you know. Whenever there's like any changes, they like thrown, and then, you know, you get all these funny behaviors. They either start pacing, or they get irritated with each other, or, you know, just go into each other's rooms, take each other's things, and, you know, just all these behaviors. So routines are really, really important, but at the same breath, we're also not going to force them into a routine. So but although we're going to try to maintain the routine, like after lunch, we put a video on and we get them to settle after lunch, because if you can get them to rest a bit after lunch, you don't have the sundowners, you know, that where they really out of and that's the same as with 4-year-olds. If they can just settle for half an hour or hour, just lie down after lunch, then they don't get grumpy at 5 o'clock. And those are the type of things that, you know, the routines you put in. If they're always used to watching the chase at 5, you put the chase on at 5, and don't disturb them while they're watching the chase at 5. So, but be cautious again if they've been awake all night and they've been walking around for some other reason. You're not going to wake them up for breakfast. You're going to leave them, because that will cause behaviors down the day again. And the minute you are over rigid, or the routines becomes more important than the person, then you'll have behaviors also. In my daughter-in-law was looking after a lady with autism. There was 2 girls in the house, and one lady, she keeps changing her clothes. So the house manager, they hide her clothes away. So the house managers normally mostly do the morning shifts, which is the shifts where quite often those are the community access shifts. So they go out and about and they do all sorts. And then and then you as new care workers, you most probably will find yourself in the position of doing late afternoon shifts and night shifts for sleepovers. Because the most shifts that are available. You've had some day shifts or mostly?
I haven't done any night yet.
No.
That's sort of a little bit separate.
Yeah.
But we tend to finish at 6. This tends to be the latest. But if
Yeah.
you go into supported independent living, you'll do different shifts.
Yeah, again. Anyway, she was looking after these 2 ladies, and she had mostly afternoon shifts. So the morning shift, which is afternoon, probably from about 3 till 8, or 3 till 9. And the one lady kept changing her clothes in the morning shift, then would hide her clothes away. And by the time she came on shifts, this lady would be so wind up, she would slam herself onto the counter and into the wall and sit and scream, just scream. And, and they don't know what to do. The behavior is already there. So, most of the time we try to prevent the behavior before the time, instead of waiting until it gets to that place. When a child is really agitated and they're screaming and crying, it's really hard to get them, sometimes you just have to leave them alone and they have to just go through it. You can't snap them out of it. So, they had a psychologist coming in, and they tried to do behavior support, and she went back and she said to them, she actually told me about it, and I said to her, why? Because I've heard about this house and I've heard about this house manager, and I knew she was being too rigid and she was being there for too long. And I said to her, what skin off her back is to just let her change the clothes? What's wrong with her? And she mentioned it. She said to them, why don't you just let her? As I said, sometimes just the most smallest things can irritate us. So, and a lot of her behavior subsided since they changed that. Instead of forcing her, maybe when she rolls out the toilet paper and use excessive toilet paper, that might be an issue, because you're going to block the toilet. Yes. And then other things. But washing the clothes every half hour, going to the machine because she's now learned how to use the washing machine, so what? If that keeps her calm and don't set her off, then let her do that. So, but removing of hazards and, also attitudes. Sometimes attitudes can be hazards, or it can be people. So, it's also about positive and adaptive responses. This is where the persons respond to the environment with a desirable behavior and do not react unexpectedly. That's a positive response. So we're all working towards having positive response, positive behavior support. So when we manage the behavior, we don't want to manage the behavior with antipsychotics. We don't want to say, oh, this person gets aggressive, so we give him a tablet for that, medication to calm him down, because these medications have huge side effects as well. Some of these medications that they use for people with mental impairments and behavior support are very, very dangerous drugs. Not
someone that's on mental health drugs are useful for the weight.
Yes, and that's that risperidone. It's horrible stuff. And if you go and read about risperidone is actually not recommended on long term. You're meant to stop it after 2 months. Yeah, no, it's not an amphetamine, but it's an antipsychotic one. And they do give those to demented people as well. And some of these drugs they have huge, they can have what is it, like, not visions, see things, hallucinations from the drugs as well. And it's really, really scary if you're seeing things that are not there. And those are from the drugs. And actually the risperidone, my son was on the risperidone some years ago with his issues, and I was working night shifts. This is about 4 years, 5 years ago, and I have a young doctor friend, and I said to her, "Oh, just struggling to sleep during the day. You know, I'm really, really struggling." And she said to me, "Why don't you take one of Jonathan's tablets?" So he had both the risperidone, and he had a tablet called Valdoxin. That's actually a type of sleeping tablet. And I confused the two tablets, and I took a risperidone. And I took it like early in the evening, because we used to start night shift at 11 at night. And I think I took it around 5 o'clock in the evening, and I had the best sleep. So I woke up at half past 9, 10 o'clock, and I went to work, and I was fine. And 12 o'clock that night, it hit me, because it takes a while to get into your system. I was so sick. I was just feeling oozy and weak. I just felt sick. I felt, so really what the risperidone does, it just disables you. It just makes you feel sick. And so it's not even making you feel like you relaxed. You just feel so, every time I stood up, I felt like I'm going to fall over. I had vertigo, and I had to just sit down. And I really detest risperidone. And also seen with the clients that I've worked with, that the doctors start giving them risperidone when they're aggressive, because they like doing that, because it helps. Because why? They sit down and they keep quiet and they don't fight. Why? Because they feel sick. And at the end of the day, like Shane say, you pick up weight on it. You feel they start, like, it's almost like my son used to say, it makes his brain feel like it's melting. They sit there and they drool, and they become in a horrible state. So before we get to running to taking our clients to get medication, let's try to sort this in a positive way. Yes, I do get it. Then I've worked with clients that are so aggressive you can't come close to them, and they just aggressive all the time, and they just want to fight with everyone, and you get slapped and you get kicked, and and I do get it. Sometimes it's really, really hard, and you then at the end, but that has to be your very last resort, is to go, can you get this guy a medication? That needs to be the very last rule. No, you're never allowed to restrain. You remove yourself from the situation. Yeah.
We have an immediate policy.
Yeah.
Or you, and then the ship sends immediately.
Yeah. You just walk away. If they get aggressive, you walk away. Say, mate, sorry, if you're going to act like this, I'll come back when you feel better. And that's called positive reinforcement as well. You're not restrained as negative. So if you restrain them, it's like giving somebody a hiding or giving somebody a fine because they broke the speed limit. It's not, or you punish a child by sending them, on home when they're naughty at school. Yay, they're really happy because they can go roam the streets now. So, that's negative reinforcement. We want to do positive reinforcement. We want to say to them, I'm here for you. I really love being with you. We can do good things when you behave. And if you keep doing that, and you just withdraw without making a noise about it, just, I'll see you later when you feel better, and you come back and they're in a good place, you make it a really positive experience for them when they're in a good place. Then eventually the penny will drop, and they will go, okay, when I behave, we do really nice things together. It's a bit like getting a reward when you are, you've done something really good for yourself.
Reinforcing positive.
Yeah. So when you do exercise and you reward yourself by going, out for dinner once a week because you've done really well this week, or you buy yourself a nice dress or something for yourself after the week, and you reinforce yourself to motivate yourself. So
But it's a
using it.
negative one to buy yourself a whole big block of chocolate.
Oh yes, that's not going to help. So review context of behaviors, recognize chapter 2, recognize behavior of concern, outline in the individualized behavior support plan. We are trying to define different types of behaviors or descriptions of behaviors. What is a behavior? In general, behavior is not a word that is either negative or positive. If you're going to read behavior in a dictionary, it's just the way we behave, isn't it? But in most of the time in mental health as well as in aged care, when we use the word behavior, we use it in a negative connotation. So it's the way one acts or conducts oneself, especially towards others. What is a challenging behavior? That is a negative impact that the person's well-being and has a negative impact on the person's well-being, and or it can lead to them being excluded from something because they have a challenging behavior. A behavior of concern is the behavior which causes stress, worry, risk, or actual harm to the person, their carers, staff, family members, or others around them. If there's harm involved, it's a behavior of concern. A complex behavior is intricate, as to understand or how to deal. So it's complex because we just don't know why. We just can't understand how, and what is the effect of these challenging behaviors. So generally, and I will say this a bit later again, this is really, really important with behaviors, specifically behaviors of concern. As I said, behavior is actually not a negative or positive thing, but with behaviors, challenging behaviors, behaviors of concern, or complex behaviors, writing things down and putting it in their care plans is so essential. It's the money spinners, and I'm sure you heard me say that before. It's the areas where we generate more care for that person, because by writing it down, we automatically generate more care. The more behaviors, the more care that person needs. And we found in dementia, it is the more staff we are, the more time we have with that person, the easier it is to manage that behavior. Because sometimes it takes time to figure it out. And if you don't have time to sit and worry or wonder what it's all about, or go and investigate, then you're not going to be able to manage it because you don't know what it is. So, and then you'll end up going to the psychiatrist and say, oh, just give him risperidone. Actually, these days, the doctors are doing it, not even the psychiatrists. They just, the GPs are writing the scripts for that. Behaviors of concern can be defined as a behavior of such intensity, frequency, and duration that the physical safety of the person or others is placed or likely to be placed under serious jeopardy, or behavior which is likely to seriously limit the use of or the result in the person being denied access to the ordinary community facilities, services, and experiences. So yeah, consider what happens before, during, and after the behavior of concern. Consider the following: what led to the incident? What is the signs that was displayed by the client immediate before the behavior? The incident itself, whether the client was needed was a need that needed to be met, the duration and the intensity of the behavior. So really, this is part of the investigation. And this is the positive approach, is looking at it. And so with behavior plans, we might have an analysis plan that we work on for a period of time, whether it's 2 or 3 weeks, to try something or keep writing down the behavior. What happened? When did it happen? Does it always happen just before lunch? Does it always happen just before dinner? Does it always happen just before we go somewhere? Does it always happen in a specific location? Does it always happen when there's a specific person around? We used to have a lady, she was a diversional therapist, and she was quite elderly. I think she was probably in her late 60s or something. She used to come in and, because the DTs play with them, so they'd come in and do activities. She used to wind up the house. Whenever I came on duty and I saw her, I used to think, oh no, I've got it made for me today. Because I don't know, she just had an energy of going in there and everybody's so wind up by the time she leaves. It's just her personality, Sometimes somebody's just too loud or just too out there for that person. And if we can start noting these things down, every time, and a pattern always emerges. If you can write it down for a period of time and then the pattern comes on, what happened just before? Well, today it was Sue's day. She was there again. Oh, it must be Sue. And you'll be surprised how our personalities can clash with people. Somebody might just not like my face, might not like my accent, because some other South African rubbed him up wrongly, somewhere along the line. And I come along and I'm totally innocent, but just because of my accent, that sets them off. It's not impossible.
I remember at a mental health ward at Toowoomba-based hospital, the nurses often would speak about the patients bouncing off each other.
Yes, and that's another thing. Yeah, because if one gets wind up, or one is, she's got a big feces in her pants and she's walking around with that and she's irritated and she's walking around looking for trouble with everyone else, then the whole house will be eventually upset, So, yeah, and you realize, or we had one old girl, she was an old school teacher. She used to walk into the dining room and she used to try to teach everyone. But she had dementia, so she's lost her language and she would just talk dementia. It's just nonsensical, but she'd still have that authoritative, and she's trying to sit somebody down there, and she'd carry on, and then these people would get really irritated with her. Like that video we had earlier today, that lady with the rattle, that would set off the next person, because they're sitting there minding their own business, trying to listen to the bagpipes on the TV, and she's making a racket, literally. And then soon enough, you'll have one old boy standing up and going to smack her or smack somebody else. Or sometimes they are walking and somebody blocks their way and it just erupts, So you really have to sort of look at the situation like with investigation, with the investigator cap on. And this is where they say it's just a cert 3. They say we are just wiping bum. But, this is just so complex because our scope of practice is so vast as we investigators. We are their mums, specifically in behaviours of concern. If they tell you mum, if they say mum, then they've got a physical need. They either have a dirty bum, or they're hungry, or they're tired, or something physical. When they start referring, they're just dropping that one word and you realize they're very tired. They want you to go and, settle them. And learning to understand these type of things, because that's one of the sort of the attributes to being an individual support worker. Emotional support, being their psychologist, just being there, listening to them. It's just our scope is really vast.
Speaking about the really bad behaviour, you were talking about one exacerbating the other one. Twice in the 7 years I was in this mental health ward, and that twice was within about 8 months period of each other. The patients actually got billiard balls off the pool table and smashed the nurse's station that had this really thick 3/4 inch glass all around it and broke the glass. And they did that because they set each other up into this sort of rebellious mood.
Yeah. All right, we might have a little break. All right, I'll start off with this little video.
And what we need to know, what everybody needs to learn how to do is de-escalate people. But guess what that requires you to be able to do? Communicate effectively. Because now I have somebody in acute distress. Unless you know how to take them down verbally and non-verbally, all you're going to do is increase their distress, which is typically what happens, which is why they end up with the EMS people strap them down to the gurney and have to drag them up, quote unquote, because they reach maximum crisis. I walked in on a Saturday into a building one time. I was there to train staff, but nobody was in the place I was supposed to do training. And I heard down the hall, wow, no, you got away, I'll kill all of you. And I thought, well, I gotta know where everybody is. And I went down the hall because, of course, when there's a racket, everybody wants to check it out. And so everybody was down there checking out the racket. Basically, everybody was supposed to be in my class, I suspect. And there was a woman backed into a corner, and there were 4 EMS folks who were trying to move in on her. And staff said, this is what we're talking about. She gets totally out of control. And they were all saying, calm down. Now turn to your partner. I want you to do this one. This one's a really popular. Do this. Calm down. I need you to calm down. Calm down. And I said, gentlemen, stop. Come here. I will handle this. I'm an expert. Now I'm going, crap. I hope I can do this. But what did I know if I chose not to do it? This was, I mean, she was already flinging her arms around. She had a cut on her arm from where she flung against the edge of the wall, and it sliced her skin because she was 89 years old. She was terrified. She was fighting them off, but she missed them and hit the wall because she didn't have depth perception. She was crouching down. She was trying to find things to throw. I mean, it was just going to get worse and worse. And I said, enough time. And I pulled everybody back. I said, you guys back off. Quit watching. It's not a show. And they were all like, and then they hid so they could watch what they did. Fortunately, I just got enough out of her range, and I didn't really care. And I said, what's her name? And they said, Millie. And I said, Millie, all these people, every one of them is coming at you. Now, notice what I did. That's Millie, and I turned this way. Who's on Millie's side? I am, and I did what she was trying to do, only I was her champion. None of it. You get out of here. All you people, leave her alone. Oh, Millie. Oh, man, I can't believe I did this. Oh, God, are you okay? It was bumps. Yeah, what do you want to do right now? What are you planning on doing right now? Absolutely taking my hand. Oh, my God, I cannot believe this is happening. Oh, are you okay? Oh, God. Oh, God. Millie. Good. There we go. There we go. There you go. There you go. You're okay. It's okay. You're okay. I'll deal with them. Come on. Let's go sit down a minute. Come on. You'll be okay. So she got up. I had her walk over to the gurney, sit down on the gurney. I helped her lie down on the gurney. I said, I'm going to put this strap here to hold you on. Okay. Okay, she said, yeah, put it on. And I said, now I'm going to do one down here because I don't want your legs to come up. Well, okay. Okay, I'm going to put the blanket up real high because you're cold. Why was she cold? Her anxiety was so high, she was freezing. She was freezing because she'd just been through this horrible incident. And so what happened is I said, here, come on, I'm going to hug you. I'm going to hold your hand. And I walked out with her. She got in the emergency vehicle, no problem whatsoever. They're like, how did you do that? Were you watching? I was willing to go where she was. She was a terrified, trapped person. And what they didn't realize is they were making it worse in their effort to help because they're trained to do what they're trained to do, which is transport people emergently. And some of them go further and they've got more skill, but that's not what their job is until we make it their job. Their job is to help people who have dementia.
So just engage with the people and inclusive communication. use short words and sentences, use repetition, use visual aids such as pictures, cards, take time to listen, communicate by sign language, communicate in writing. I want to just pause this for a sec. Say a very large part of behaviors of concern happens during personal care. When you're going to go take them to the toilet, when you're going to go take them to shower, when you try to get them up in the morning and their bed is wet, this is where the behaviors, most of the behaviors happen. Because these people are embarrassed for one, and then you are coming into their personal space. We all have a personal space. So if I've had an old boy, I come in, he agreed, you know, he said, do you want to come with me to have a shower? Yeah, no worries. We walked to the bathroom. He sat down on the toilet, even got him to sit down on the toilet. The minute I went down on my knees to take his shoes off, he slapped me, and he took the slap from up here. Whoa. And he slapped me on the side of my head. My neck was sore for weeks. You could have been sliding over. I could have, yeah. Broken your neck. Because he didn't see me. Plus, I touched his feet. He didn't see me. He didn't see I was down there. And his feet was very sensitive also, you know. He agreed. It wasn't like I was doing something against his will or I was forcing him. It was just that he did not see me. He did not know where I was and where I touched. I was out of his line of vision. So the minute you come in a way that they don't expect you, sometimes specifically behaviors of concern where they are actually lashing out at you or they hit you, are the behaviors that happens when they can't see you. So just be very aware. There's some control that on your side lobes, on the side, on the left and right lobes. Those are your speech and your vision and your hearing as well are in there. If it's in the middle part of the brain, it's your memory. And if it's frontal lobe, a lot of diseases are with the frontal lobe. Your Parkinson's. Korsakoff's dementia, which is the alcohol related Alzheimer's or dementia, and drug related. So a lot of our behaviors of concern are drug related. You know, if you go out there, are people that have had psychosis and have lost part of their mental capacities that you guys are going to be looking after.
And are they frontal lobe?
Frontal lobe. And those are the reasoning, so they cannot reason with you, they cannot have compassion with you, and they can't control their impulses. You know, if they want to lash out, they can't stop themselves from lashing out because, you know, they just do what, you know, because that impulse control is gone. So when just understanding, and when you have a person with a acquired brain injury, which is somebody maybe that have been in a car accident or, you know, or have had a tumor on the brain that has been removed, and sometimes there's acquired brain injuries that goes related to that. If you've got anyone like that, just read specifically which part of their brain is affected and which type of behaviors then comes from that. So you can understand. If it's about language, they can't understand you because their words or their understanding in what words have been affected, then you need to use picture cards. You may need to find pictures to communicate with them. If it is that the vision has been affected, then you need to make sure that you get their attention, you know, when you're working with them. So those are engaging them in being inclusive. The Maslow hierarchy of needs, and it's in your book. I don't have a page number.
Page 23.
23, if you want one a bit closer. It starts in the bottom, which is our psychological needs, or sorry, our physical needs, which is down the bottom, which is the basic human needs: food, water, warmth, rest. Then there's safety needs, having security and safety, of just feeling safe with somebody, and and then there's belonging, intimate relationship, friends. Now, sometimes the the safety needs and the belonging needs with, and I think I've said this before, remember when you deal with somebody, they may not remember your name, they may not remember what the conversation was about, but they remember the feeling you gave them. If they felt safe with you, they most likely will allow you to do things with them. And they most likely will not lash out because they felt safe with you. Then there's the esteem needs. And again, those are the things we spoke about, having purpose, you know, feeling like you belong, feeling like life is worth living, or I've accomplished something. That is like including them when you're making them lunch. So come and you stir this. You cut this, you do this, you know, and teaching them, and then they feel like you've set them up for success. But doing small things, even like brushing their teeth, going in the bathroom and setting them up, give the toothbrush to them with the toothpaste on and mirror to them what they should be doing with it. And then you sit and then what, oh, you've done a real good job. And they feel like, oh, they've established, you know, they've done something. We have the behaviors, what we call challenging behaviors, sometimes in aged care, where we have the old girls that want to walk themselves to the bathroom and they want to get themselves ready. But every time they get up, they fall over. So, and every time they fall over, they have a black eye or they've broken something, you know. So we go in and we say, no, come, lovey, you need to call us to help you. And she just wants to do it. And it's in her system. She wants to do it. And if you let them do that, you know, walk to the bathroom with her, it takes you 10, 15, 20 minutes longer than what it would have taken if you had brought the toilet chair to her, sat her down on the toilet chair and wheeled her to the toilet. But then she would have gotten that out of her system. She would have walked to the bathroom. Maybe you go get the toilet chair and pull it behind her. She's walking, you know, and halfway she might go, oh, I can't do this anymore. And you say, okay, no, that's fine. Here's the chair, sit down. Remember just to put the brakes on, you know, and sit her down, but let her get that out of her system, because most likely, if you don't let her do what she wants to do, she's going to try to get up and do it herself when you leave. And then you'll end up having to go back because she's had a fall. And it's more paperwork. And you have to go and check up on her every 15 minutes, every half hour to see if, you know, what her blood pressure is, you know, and just check up on them. So just let them get it out. If they want to go and choose their own clothes for tomorrow, you don't go, no, let's just leave it. We'll get it tomorrow morning because you're in a hurry, you know. Just let her do what she needs to do. Go stand in front of the cupboard and you find something else to do. Even if you carry your iPad with you and do notes while you're standing waiting for her, paging through all her clothes, trying to find her outfit for tomorrow, you know.
I wondered what you could do, because just say the pressure's on you and you've got 4 or 6 ladies and they all want to take an hour to choose what clothes they have or an hour to go to the toilet.
It is challenging. It is, and it's part of planning. You know, take your iPad with you for one. Other thing is, you might say to her, okay, if you want to choose something for tomorrow, maybe I can help you. And then you go and pull 3 outfits out and say to her, which one of these would you like? You can try that, and then maybe she chooses one, and that will eliminate that, you know, and she get it and it's sorted. But then remember that if you don't let him get him out of your system, you most likely, even though you've got 4 or 6 other people to go and care for, if you have to go back because she's had a fall,
it'll be longer.
Your time is wasted anyways. So it's best you like let them, you know, if they want to transfer, if they want to try get up themselves and transfer into a chair, or, you know, these are just there's other types of, you know, obviously with people with disability, there's other esteemed needs they have. That they want to, like that lady washing the kitchen towel or clothes every half hour. She wants to throw something in the machine, you know, let her, because she gets esteemed by it. She feels accomplished because she's done something, and she gets it out of her system instead of landing up with a huge behavior of concern. That means you need to write these things down, report these things, because most of the time there's incidents that comes from it. They get hurt, somebody else get hurt, And then you're like, I can't work with her because I just got slapped. I'm walking, I'm going, you know, and trying to avoid that type of thing. So you try to let them get it out of their system. And that self-actualization needs achieving their full potential, including creative activities. So, you know, doing painting, or, you know, when you are doing painting or activities where they're doing something creative, like guiding them to do it themselves. It's like teaching somebody the computer. You sit them down and you tell them what to do step by step instead of you doing it for them. So it's just letting them do that. Chapter 2.3, consider still the type, the frequency, and the triggers of behaviors. We spoke about that. Triggers of behaviors. Behaviors likely to put the person or other at harm. Have potential to physically harm or some destruction. Lasts for excessive time. Isolates the person and interfere with the person's learning. Triggers of behavior can be audible, visual, sensory, olfactory, taste-related, or the sensation or environment, time-related, or many other things.
What does olfactory?
Smell. So each person with a disability is unique. Respect the client's circumstances and respond in ways that are both fair and open. Promote the increase of independence. It's really, really important. That, because that's a self-esteem. That's that self-actualization. Need of, you know, doing something. Each client's right to privacy, dignity, and confidentiality in all aspects of their care or of their life. And making these assessments, finding out about the nature, the intensity, and the frequency and the duration of the behavior that causes harm. Develop theories or factors that contribute and maintain the adult's behavior that causes them harm. Develop, make recommendations about appropriate strategies. Meeting the adult's needs and improving the quality of life, managing the adult's behavior that causes harm, and the baseline data should be gathered at during these assessments. So it's again us as care workers that normally conduct these assessments and that are putting this together. I know for schools, teachers, they have specific designed assessments for these type of things. They don't really have that for us. We might have to design something ourselves, you know. You target the behavior and then say, she screams like excessively. And generally it looks like for no reason. And then you notice every time she goes into a room that there is a red object in, she starts screaming. Something like that. You know, sometimes it can be, and then we are the ones that write these things down that are making. So, and I know during communication, we said that it's not really our thoughts or you know, what we think it might have been, that or the way we see things that is important. But when it comes to behaviors of concern, it is actually necessary that we make some sort of evaluation. And normally the conclusions and the evaluations will come after a period of time, you know, after you've written it down, or you can just note physical things around. So you say the person screams, and these are the factors around her. And then next time she screams, and these are the factors around there. There is 10 people in the room. There's loud music on the radio. The TV is on. We're in the toilet and suddenly the hand dryer goes on. My granddaughter, she actually knows now, and she says to me, she says, I don't like the hand dryer. And when we went to enroll her in school. When we walked past the toilet, she asked the headmistress, she said to her, "Do you have hand dryers?" Yeah, she's trying. She said, "No, we don't." And then she said, "Okay, good." She's like, she's a big, you know. So, you know, just because she knows she doesn't like, she always said, "I want paper, I want paper."
Yeah, I don't like the noise either. I'm like,
Yeah. And that sound, you know, sometimes just that sound, the sound of the vacuum cleaner, the sound of the blower outside, the sound of the lawnmower, the person set off, there's the sound. If it's olfactory, if there's a smell around, you know. Person started screaming, or the person started being agitated or pacing or getting irritated, somebody is cooking a meal. We've got some strange smells in town, you know. There's the smell of the cane burning, or you know, the chlorine smell, or these chemicals being used. My mum used to always get all irritated when we use chemicals in the house. She always is like, "Don't use chemicals in my house." Yeah, she would go, she'd say, it's closing my lungs up. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. You know, whenever we use chemicals in the house. And even if there's cauliflower or cabbage boiling, that smell of cabbage is a really, and she'd go, "I can't eat. I can't eat." Why? "I can't take that smell. It's closing my lungs." She always used to say, "Closes my lungs." It doesn't close it. She was just irritated by that. And then she doesn't want to eat, you know, because of the smell. So some people are set off by that. I'm going to skip the next video because I'm going to play it for you tomorrow when we do the assessment, because it's related to assessment. It's related to this trauma and arousal cycle, and we will do it tomorrow, and then I'll play that video. So consider the environmental factors, and I've spoken a bit about a few already. Environmental factors that can be described as external influences that impacts on the client, the location, the type of environment, the objects in the environment, spoken about that, noise, light, temperature, overcrowding or busy environment, inappropriate signage, lack of information, long waiting times. People with autism can't wait.
They cannot wait.
They don't like to wait in queues, or wait at the hospital, or wait anywhere.
I guess I got autism.
Can't wait. You'll be surprised how many of us are actually somewhere on the spectrum.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you'll be surprised. Cultural factors, you know, I mean, continuous bullying of other cultures. Like, you've always been bullied, always been shamed and stuff, and then coming in an environment where there's people that you know are bullying you. Loss of routine, unfamiliar surroundings, the pace of the surroundings, just the way things are, the lack of meaningful activities, overstimulation, understimulation, imposed boundaries or routines. That's that forceful, you know, getting up now, we're going to have lunch, we're going to have it, you know, it's time to go and have a shower, whether they want to or not. Stopping a habit or behavior, like just stop smoking. Sometimes if they've come off medication, you know, they might have been on a medication for a very long time, and then the doctor stopped that medication or wean them off, or new medication. Clutter, bright lights, mirrors. That's a big thing with people with frontal lobe issues. Seeing their own image, or even elderly people with dementia that they remember themselves as very young, and then suddenly there's a stranger looking at them, you know, and it can set them off. Temperature, too hot, too cold. Sometimes they swap it over. They'll tell you it's too hot, and then it's too cold, or it's too cold, and it's actually too hot.
Yeah.
So they mix that up. Recent changes in the environment, new staff, new people, new residents, or boredom, you know, just nothing to do, just feeling really bored and challenged by it. Challenging behaviors can be exacerbated if a person has fear, anxiety, anger, depression, social isolation, mania, like OCD also, fixed beliefs or current thinking, separation anxiety, just missing somebody, a few of my clients, when they used to get start going in and out other people's rooms taking their stuff, and I knew it was them missing their own family. So they will actually go and take other people's family photos. It's so funny, like they would, we used to tell our clients to actually write their names on the back of their photos, because they take each other's photos and say it's their photos. But when they start doing that, when they start going looking for things in other people's rooms and specifically photos, they're missing their family.
And we've got a lady we visited, and she's always putting the photographs downwards and like packing up as though she's going to go home.
Yeah, because she's missing her family. Yeah. And those are the things. Then I would call the family, I'd call the son or the daughter and say, can you come and visit mom's missing you? And it was most of the time it's that they haven't seen them for a little while, and they can't remember their names. And it's funny how people think, oh, she doesn't even remember who I am.
It's really hard with all these lockdowns and stuff.
Yeah, it's terrible. My mum stopped eating because we were not there. We were far away, It has a huge impact on them.
What did she do?
She stopped eating. So it caused her, passing away, because she damaged herself because of that. My husband's grandfather as well in the UK, end of last year, he also stopped eating in dementia. He was in dementia ward because he wasn't seeing his daughters and stuff, and he then passed away. So it has a huge impact on you. One lady I looked after, she would sit and then she would keep wanting to get up and walk and go meet her husband, and she says, there's my husband, or he's at the door, and then she keeps wanting to get up and she can't get up and she can't walk far. She keeps falling over. And whenever she does that, we call her son, and he's so good. And then he'd come and sit and play guitar and then she'll be good for the longest time after that. But it's just that she's missing them, and she thinks she sees them somewhere, and she wants to get, and she called him her husband, even though it was her son. Because that's the connection she formed. Quite often, the one old girl, she called her son her father. But I think he actually looked a bit like her father. So
the same name.
yeah. So it's that feeling that stays. That person gives me a feeling of feeling safe, or, I belong. Loss of self-worth. In the ways that we can help in some of these things is aromatherapy. Music therapy is a big thing. If you put music on for people with mental disorders, it is amazing. It's amazing. Music just helps so much. Exercise therapy, and then there's multi-sensory things that sometimes the DTs or the occupational therapists will do with clients with autism, that they'll make them boards with sensory things on. A lot of our clients had like a cloth sewed on with different things sewed on the top. So it would have a zip and a button and a Velcro and different types of sensory things that they can sit and play with the whole time. Now, I'm like that too. If I see a picture that's got, you want to feel whether it's really standing out or not. If it's 3D or something, you got that feeling, like you just want to feel, and it's that just satisfying that sensory need. Chapter 2.5, consider the person's emotional well-being within the context of their behavior. So their emotional well-being is also really important, because it's interact as part of your society. Keep a record of your clients' responses and reactions while participating in activities, and be aware of potential mood changes. It's important that activities can be performed, that a sense of achievement is being made. So emotional well-being is really about that they feel they belong, or they feel that they've achieved something. And this is really important in disability because we are targeting, teaching them new things. They have expressed the need, I want to live in my own house. So you're taking them out of their parents' home into a supported living environment, and you slowly want to teach them new things. And sometimes they can be really daring, they go out with you and they want to, get on the escalator themselves, or they start, just walking into a shop and start talking to strangers because they building up this confidence, and suddenly they really starting to go out or pay their own way, learn to do that. And there's little things like that, like emotionally they're feeling encouraged about it. Chapter 2.6, consider the person's health status in context of the behavior. They may be under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. There might be a physical injury. They may have elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure. They may excessive sweating, dilating pupils, pain in a specific area. It really, I was just thinking about this one lady last night. I was in my hot flashes. I was thinking about her. She used to sit and then she'd get her whole face would be all sweaty, and you'd see like she must be really hot. And I was thinking to myself last night that we always used to dress her, like in wintertime, dress her in warm clothes, and she would be trapped in a wheelchair. She can't take the stuff off. And how unfair is it? Like if I'm thinking when I'm hot, I really just want to pull it off. And if you can't do that yourself, you might start screaming, or somebody, I would be really irritated if I get hot and I can't take it off. I can't. Yeah, but when you don't feel well, if you've got a stomach, I mean, just again, think about our kids when they don't feel well, what do? They cry, and then most of the time they can't tell you why they're crying, and you're just like, what's wrong? And then eventually you'll feel, oh, it feels a bit hot to touch, and you take the temperature, or the teeth, like with little ones, they go, oh, they must be teething because they're doing something that is out of character. With the urine infections, that's a big one. You'll notice they'll start saying silly things. They'll go, yeah, there's tomatoes on the floor. Can you take these cows out of my room? And there's no cows here. But sometimes they can have a mental impairment, but even within that, they can act outside of the norm, where they normally are just like this, and suddenly they saying something weird or doing something weird, and it may be a urine infection.
Can you tell me about urinary tract infections, as in when people are young and you teach them toilet training, they're meant to wipe from the front to the back for number twos, but some older people will wipe from the back to the front with number twos. That can cause a...
Look, I mean, it's been a debate that even I've had in myself as a debate, because why does little kids not get infection if they've got a nappy on?
Yeah, exactly.
And the poo is in the front.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, yes, perhaps because our immunity falls as we go, our resistance to infections, like maybe urine infections, go. Yeah. But, I think with elderly people, it's more so the chemicals in the pads.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually causing it more than what it is the feces. Yeah. Yeah, it's more the chemicals inside. It's that stuff that absorbs the stuff that gets bigger, that gel. Yeah, in my opinion, that's the thing. So keeping them because I can't figure out why a baby wouldn't get infection. And then again, you do get babies that do get infection, and then often they're saying it's the type of pad.
Quickly you go to attend them after they've done that.
That's true too, yeah, because that will, but that will be a nappy rash rather than an infection, So, yeah, I don't know. In any ways, we do. It's about cleanliness and being frequently looked after for sure. but I also think it can be the chemicals in the, but again, that will come down to how frequently they are looked after. If it's left for a long time.
She doesn't wear a pad, normally she just wears underpants.
Yeah.
But she wipes from the back to the front.
It
That
could
worries me
be.
because I had to wipe her and I
It'll be
wiped
a
the
gut
other one.
health. The gut health
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Gut health. Gut's your second brain.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be. It is there. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not saying she had infections, but how do you spot it?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, urine infection, they do have an elevated temperature, so you can pick it up with the temperature, but also just the dipstick with testing the urine, and it's easy to do and to read it. You can straight away see if there's a different coloring on the urine test. Taking their blood pressure, taking their pulse, just feeling that they're warm, taking their temperature, those things is that. People that have diabetes, they can act out just because they're diabetes, in the morning. I know some people with diabetes, you can't talk to them before 12 o'clock in the morning. They just most difficult people. And then after that, when they've had enough to eat and the blood sugar levels have stabilized, they're okay. You can, So that's a big thing too. Nutrition. Consider the nutrition. It's important that the correct nutrition is being received by a client to maintain a healthy energy levels. Check with your client's family or carers that the diet is appropriate and contains the right balance of food and for the individual and their condition, and that what their eating plan is. We had I must have told you about the young man that used to come to class with autism. He was quite high on the spectrum. He is nonverbal. He used to come to class with us last year, and we were at ADRA. And he only eats chicken schnitzels and chicken chips. That's his diet. And drink Coke. That's all he had. Coke. Fizzy drinks. Well, he'll drink Fanta or any fizzy drinks. And then the care worker reported that he was throwing things. He was throwing plates into the roof and, into the wall, and he was hurting. He was hitting people. At some stage, he took him to Canelands, and he was hitting people at Canelands. And we started looking at this. When does it happen? So we started writing down, when does it happen? So it usually happens on a Monday, when he's come back from being with his dad for the weekend. And then we thought, what happened at dad's that don't happen with mom? And look at that. Okay, well, with dad, he goes out having KFC and takeaways, and he has loads of Coca-Cola all weekend. That was the one thing. And the other thing is that we also realized that could contribute to it is that because his diet's not balanced, he could be constipated. We wouldn't know it, because he's just eating chicken chips and chicken schnitzel. So we started suggesting getting a soda streamer and putting vitamin tablets, those dissolvable tablets in the soda streamer. And he loved that because he thought it was a fizzy drink. It was a Fanta. So he was drinking that. And the thing is with, like if we, B6 is a big thing. That can make you moody, can make you depressed, feel depressed if you don't have enough B6.
Oh, vitamin B6.
So if you are feeling depressed or you're feeling sad, it's usually B6. And B6 is, you can get it in a B complex. But
is B6 help prevent you feeling sad, or does it cause you to?
No, it prevents, yeah. So it helps you to feel happier in yourself. So yeah, just getting your B vitamins in. So, and then the other thing is just we try to get some that you get that clear powders that you can mix with a drink, and it helps to, constipation, just to get the what's it called? Roughage or stuff into his diet, fiber into his diet. So these things can cause people, if you don't note, like he hasn't been to the toilet for 4 days. Think of yourself, how you feel. You know, if you haven't gone for a day or two, how you feel and how good you feel if you've had a good old, you know, it's just, it's so important. So, and that can make people set off. It can make people feel miserable. Look, it's a really vast thing of, that I'm saying to you, so many different triggers there. But the basis is if you start with a hierarchy of needs, and you've established they're not hungry, they're not thirsty, they're not, you know, it's not there, it's not emotional need, then we get to things like, is it a medical thing? You know, is it a physical something in the body? And generally as nurses, we will, the daily ops, which is daily checking whether they are well, are the first thing we do as nurses anyway. You know, first in aged care, the first thing we do is a urine test if somebody is. We first, and it's by elimination, and that's the way mechanics work. That's the way electricians work, is by elimination. So that's all we can do. We can go by elimination. Okay, we sorted all the physical problems, took that out of the way. We've taken all the environmental factors away. It's not that. And so you go until you find what the problem is. So sometimes it can take a while to get to a conclusion. Sometimes it can be quite obvious and it can be quite easy to find out. Medication. Consider medication. Medication need to be observed and recorded in medication context of harmful behaviors. Again, this can be used to address, to reduce triggers, but medication can cause behaviors. You know, some medication like
Red jelly beans.
some of the antipsychotic medication actually cause hallucinations. You know, some of the medications like pain medications can cause hallucinations.
Lyrica is like brain fog 101. And yeah, I even got to the point I had too much one day and was slurring my words. It was like I was drunk.
Yeah.
I couldn't walk very well. I mean, I couldn't walk as well, but it was, you know.
Yeah, Lyrica.
I was
yeah. And it's meant to not even be, it's meant to be just on the nerves, you know, yeah.
But it took me I reckon it's taken at least a year to recover just from the brain fog.
Yeah. Yeah. There's quite a few medications like, and Lyrica works on your nervous system. It's not actually a pain med. It's actually a long-term work, you know, working with restoring your nerves. So because your nerves cannot really restore themselves, it's also debatable whether it even works or not. But then a lack of some vitamins, those can be included as medication. I mean, post pregnancy depression, what's it called? Postnatal. That is a lack of vitamins. That's a lack of certain hormones and vitamin balance. That is the problem there. It's our duty of care that it requires individual to provide a standard of reasonable care while carrying out activities that could potentially harm others. Breaching our duty of care means that we as an individual are liable and legal action can be taken from the client's family or something like that. So record all observations accurately and objectively in consultation with your supervisor using terms that can be clearly understood. And this is again one of the things with medication. One of the students, and I don't remember in which unit it was, that the aha moment came for him. We went and he went back and he was looking after a young man with a acquired brain injury. And this young man, not so, I don't know how old he is anyways, I don't even know the person's name or never met him, but he looked after this man and this man would sleep. He would say he always sleeps from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock every day. And it causes issues for the afternoon shift because the afternoon shift used to say to him, wake him up, he has to go there and he has to go there. And he just couldn't wake him up. He just couldn't get him going.
He might have been a shift worker once.
And you know what? And he kept saying, oh, but everyone says, yeah, he always does that. And I challenged him. I said, keep records. Because this is the first thing you do with behaviors. That's the only way it's going to come out. And it's going to come out over a period of time. So I challenged him, keep records. And he did that. He went back and he wrote it down. Every time he had a shift with him, he wrote down, client went to sleep at 10 o'clock, woke up at 2 o'clock. And then a few weeks later, he came to class. He said, guess what? The psychiatrist saw him and he looked at his records and he said, no, this is not right. Why is he sleeping all day? And he looked at his medication and his medication was wrong. They were actually dishing out in his Webster pack in the morning his sleeping tablet instead of giving it to him in the evening.
And that's when it was knocking him at 10 a.m.
Yeah. And you know, it's stuck. Medication can be wrong. It can be given at the wrong time. Doctors make mistakes. Pharmacists make mistakes. We make mistakes. And that's why we keep the records, because that will also bring out the mistake that has been made. And some medication make one person drowsy and may wake another person up. There's some of the sleeping tablets that actually wakes people up, you know. So like, what is that one, the big flat white one, starts with the M. Anyway, they use that medication for people with seizures to balance it, and it's actually a sleeping tablet, and some people with seizures, it actually wakes them up. It, you know, makes them alert. So some medications can have a different effect in our bodies. We're all different. So, and it can be a combination of medication. Again, if somebody's on schizophrenia medication and he has diarrhea and vomiting episodes for 2 days in a row, his schizophrenia medication may not be absorbed properly, and he then will act out, or, you know, revert back into seeing things and hearing things because his body didn't function or the medication wasn't taken up. So just keep a good record. I know it seems really daunting if you think about all the possibilities of things that can go wrong, and it could be, but really it starts with something simple as just writing it down. Just write everything down. Just keep writing down. We're in a room. There was 12 people there. The lights were flickering. There was a sound of a fan. You know, the pens were going or whatever. And you write just everything down every time. And then this person started pacing up and down, or, you know, something was happening. Client activities, how they respond, you know, just write it down. Activities when you do leisure activities, how do they respond? There's changes of routines or circumstances, behaviors of concern and the frequency, progress made against objectives or goals. I also need to fill out other documentation, incident and accident reports, or general administration. Chapter 3. Provide positive behavior support according to individualized behavior support. Recognize the difference between appropriate and inappropriate interventions when addressing behaviors of concern. Defining appropriate interventions. So this may be used if to create a situation or of safety. But if there's any doubt, use positive behavior support in your strategies, and this will help to maintain dignity and human rights in the client. Sorry, I haven't downloaded this video, so I'm just opening it up here. So this isn't about appropriate intervention. If it will start any minute now. Oh, it's unavailable. Why? Okay, I'm just going to try to see if I can copy that link. Try it a different way. 54, sorry. Oh, I might have already put it in there, but I. It's a bit like that, hey?
Mate.
All right, so just in behavior support, we just try to identify all the triggers, and then once we've identified, we will try to get to. I've got a video here, so maybe it's this one.
I'm gonna get on the, I need to be on the dominant side of the individual because that's where they have motor memory for doing all kinds of tasks. They don't know how to use their other hand really as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get on this side now. Hold hands like you normally hold hands. Shake hands.
I
like
do
you
this
normally
with each other.
and realize there's nothing real comfortable about that. I mean, once you shake hands, then it's like, okay, let go. And what we can end up with is a tug of war. Or late in the disease, people with dementia often like a lot of contact and they'll squeeze you and actually hurt you. And it's like, ow, 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 ow. And where are you going to grab to get them loose? On the wrist. And what you're going to do is lose it. Shake hands, but then immediately slide up around so that what you're doing is holding on palm to palm, thumb to thumb, and you've got a lot of palm contact. Try that with your partner. And then turn it so their hand is on top of you. So that it's very serious. What you're doing is you're putting pressure in the palm. So what you're actually doing is helping to calm them. Even while we're doing the other thing that I can do is take the other hand and lay it on top of
That's
the
more of
hand.
a supportive thing.
And what I'm creating is artificial warmth and padding. What are they missing? Warmth and padding. So all of a sudden, we're feeling more comfortable. Now, there's a big difference between me being down here where she can see me, because remember the visual field problems? What happens if I'm up here? Yeah, and what if I face her like this? What she's going to start to do is mess with me here, or she doesn't realize what I'm doing, and it feels to her like I'm bossing her around. So I want to either sit down or get down so I'm at her level and she can really look at me. The other thing I can do by applying just a little bit of pressure, she'll automatically look, and now I can talk to her. I'm going to help you get washed up. Okay, good. And take your shirt off. There you go. Now, that's a little less distressing because she doesn't know what I was doing by being to the side and having a single person in the room. And I'm not being loud, I'm not being noisy. What else do you think we need to think about doing in the room? Given that she doesn't have any insulation and I'm about to have her come out of her shirt. Get it really warm. Who's going to need to be sweaty? Me. I need to be hot so that when she comes out of her shirt, she's not uncomfortable. Because if she is uncomfortable, is she going to want to take more clothing off? No, because she's cold. Here's the next thing we're going to do. I'm going to take a warm towel fresh out of the dryer and drape it around her shoulders. Now, when I do that, what happens to her exposure in the front? She's covered, she's modest, but what can also happen, she's warmer. Then what I can do is wet her through the towel. I don't even need to take the bra or the under things off yet. Let her keep some modesty. Because once you get your clothing wet, what do you think most people want to do? Take it off. And if I haven't had a battle up to now it makes sense to take those off. Okay? Here's the other place I want to put a towel. Across the lap. Why? That's the other modest place. And that's another place that's real sensitive.
if you have clients that have, and like I say, most of the time these situations happen when we bathing them. Most of the behaviors happen there. Always take at least 4 towels with you to the bathroom so you can use the towels. And I've seen this in practice. I've had one client, she was walking with a dirty pad, a pooey pad for 2 days, and nobody could get her out of it. She was only in she was 59 actually. She had early onset dementia. We couldn't get her out of her pad, and she kept walking around slapping everyone. She'd slap the old girls, and she was really like, she just tried to get out the doors and slapping anyone that gets in her way and everything. And we couldn't get her into the bathroom. Eventually, I tricked her. I said to her, can you come with me to the room? I've got something nice for you to drink. And she went with me. She walked with me to the room. And once I went into the bathroom, I said, come, I'll give you a drink. And I went into the bathroom and I gave her a drink. And when she came around, and I held the cup so she comes around closest to the shower. And I had already started the shower. The shower's running behind, but she didn't see. And then she was drinking it. And as she was drinking it, I wet her. I wet because we couldn't get her clothes off and you can't force her. So I started wetting her, and because the water was nice and warm, while she's and she's looked at me, I said, no, just take your clothes off, we'll have a shower. And once she was wet, she took her clothes off and I gave her a shower. Her bottom was one big blister.
Oh, yeah.
It was red like a big blister. But I had to be tricky. I didn't force her. I tricked her into the bathroom. She felt like I gave her a drink like I was on her side. And then once I wet her, she was automatically took the clothes off and she started showering. Another old boy, he just refused to shower. And he refused to wear a pad as well. So he would really smell of urine all the time. And I just got him into the shower and I said to him, you get into the shower, you keep the towel around you. And I had to sit there and say, I'm not leaving until you get into the shower. Again, he was young onset dementia and was actually acquired brain injury because he had a tumor on his frontal lobe that they took out, and that caused his brain, his dementia. But he was also in his 50s. He was an architect, so he was a very clever man with the most beautiful paintings that he painted himself in his room. And he was so proud and actually so modest. And I just got him in the shower and I said, you keep the towel, you take your clothes off and keep the towel on. And we showered him with the towel on. He had the towel around him all the time. It's the only way I could get him showered. And that's fine. A little bit of water is better than no water, and at the end it's like having a face cloth and washing yourself with a face cloth. So, and I've seen that work. So but at the same time, don't get them stirred up. Try do it in the calmest way, and rather trick them than getting them stirred up. And then them trusting you and have a good feel towards you instead of you getting aggressive and start fighting with them. That's the way we used to do it in the 80s. 2 nurses would come, the one would grab their hands and hold him, and the next one would just get on and do it. And we had so many incidents, so many skin tears, bruises. It's not right. It's not fair. Yeah. So sometimes this is necessary, critical incident counseling, and most companies, if you have clients with behaviors of concern, would have critical incident counseling. My daughter-in-law came to me about 2 weeks ago, and she had to have a critical incident counseling with a team on the computer on Zoom. From, I don't know, Sydney or somewhere in another town. They were doing counseling with her because she's got 2 clients. The one client is a lady with a mental impairment, and she got onto the internet, gets onto the internet and has had this chats with strangers, and then they just arrive at the door in the middle of the night wanting to take her away and stuff. And they had to put some plans in place to protect the client. And the other person, there was she stole something from somebody. She stole somebody's wallet or something, and then and at some stage she knew, she saw the wallet, and then she reported it. And then, the client denied that she did. She's some compulsion. And you land up and the police came as well to the house to come and investigate the whole thing because this client stole
Oh,
somebody's
okay.
stuff. So, you know, then you need this critical counseling. You may need somebody to come around, you know, or you might work with somebody and there's been an incident, like you've been attacked or you've been hit or something. Remember, your body, your brain may say to you, this person's got a mental impairment. But your body still takes it like a normal person's hit you. You know, you still feel that it's a horrible feeling because you feel like they don't like me or like,
Or
you know,
you've been violated.
something inside of you. And if you're continuously exposed to that violence, your body starts reacting like any battered woman or person that is in a relationship, in a physical violent situation. Your body starts reacting. You know, you may get lethargic or over emotional or aggressive yourself because you can't continuously exposed to that. So it's not a good place to be in, and it's not a good place to be in for a long period of time without getting some critical counseling. So it's really important. It's one form of crisis management. And it's a therapy tool that belongs in the field of crisis management. Critical counseling is therefore focused on immediate reduce stressful reactions and return the emotions to the normal state. It's important for us, and sometimes the client may need critical counseling also, because they've wind themselves up to that place that they may need to be restored. Sometimes client violence uh, towards each other, you know, if there's continuous violence like that. That's just an appropriate thing to keep in mind for yourself.
And after an incident like that, where the client or the consumer has stolen something and the police have been there and this and that, would the same carer then have to go back and keep caring for that person after that incident had happened?
Well, if that carer, it's not necessary. At any time, you may come to a place where you say, I can't do this anymore. And it's important then to communicate that with your team. If your team don't listen, go to your GP. Your GP is your best friend. Because if you go to your doctor and you say, I've been looking after this specific client for X amount of time, the client's been very violent, I'm now starting to experience emotional distress. I'm now starting to feel over emotional. I don't sleep well. Your doctor will put you on a mental health care plan for that at first and send you for counseling anyways. But you can also ask your doctor to give you a letter of recommendation you can take to your work. And I've done that, where I've taken the letter to work and say, I cannot work in dementia at the moment because it's just taking a toll on me. You know, I'm not sleeping.
You're getting burnt
And
out.
I'm getting burned out. So my doctor wrote the letter and say, I can't. So it might be necessary because my work wasn't listening. When I kept saying to them, I can't do this anymore, please move me to a different area, they kept saying, no, we don't have anyone to fill your place. You know, you need to go back. And because I was good at it, they wanted me there, but it was taking a toll on me. And again, the worst day in my life was when I was in there and I told one old boy sitting there, he was urine everywhere and his chair and he's sitting and it's like a dinner time and I'm saying to him, can you get up, let's go into the go change you before dinner. And he started swearing at me, and because I was already emotionally distressed, I started crying. And I had 6 or 7 other demented people around me and the wheels came off everyone. Nobody had dinner that night. No, yeah, you know, nobody wanted to sit down, nobody, because the leader of the pack wasn't the leader of the pack anymore, you know. So you need to be in control. And it's really hard if you can't manage them. That if you're not your good self, you have to be your best self to be in that situation, to be in. And it can be so joyous. It can be so rewarding when you see that things are working and you are doing the right thing and you are actually eating, you know, you actually solving cases. It's like being a good detective, you know, you're actually doing something and people are responding well to you and you're actually getting things done. It's very, very rewarding. But then at the same time, it does burn you out. It is one of those areas. Inappropriate interventions are those that infringe the person's dignity and quality of life if you force yourself on them. That's not appropriate. Actions that don't support the person's well-being, such as physical restraint or being determinal to the individual, like being, even verbally forceful, like, get in, start swearing at them, it's just not on. And that's not appropriate. You need to find something else. And those are one of the signs that you are getting burned out. If you're getting irritated with them, remember, if you're getting irritated or you started swearing and a client son or daughter comes in the door and they don't know what's run before, they don't know how many times this person has slapped you, they don't know that you've been thrown with piss, that you've been thrown with feces, that you've gone through all of this to get to the point where you slap them. Or to the point where you start swearing at them. They only see your action. There was a lady that was fired because she grabbed the arms of a client and she forced him back because the visitor came in and saw her doing that. At that instant. But what they didn't see, that the client had a knife in his hand and he was going for somebody else. They missed that first part, So she got into trouble because she used excessive force. So I've been in trouble for using excessive force with that man throwing the water out, cornered him in a corner and tried to get the cup off him. It's not nice when that happens to you. It's not nice when somebody accuses you of violence if you haven't even been violent, But it's that being in your best self and always using appropriate, if it's not appropriate, if that's the only way to get to them by being violent, then you should be resigning. You should go and do something else. Generally, most of the time, there are other clients you can ask to be moved. If you get to the place where you feel like, oh, I'm going to smack him back next time he smacks me, rather ask for a transfer. It's just the best, it's to your best interest, because if that comes against your name, it goes on your blue card, your yellow card, that's you out of the industry. So you don't want to get there. Don't go there. Discrimination Act 1992, keep in mind not to discriminate. Interpret and follow behavior support strategies. Show empathy, redirection. So being on their side. Distraction, removing the stimuli, removing them from the environment. So these are strategies on how to deal with the situation. So if you can't redirect them, distract them, look here, it's a little lesson. Quickly. But how do we do with our kids? They want chocolates and we say, no, you can have a strawberry instead, So, and then they're happy and it's too late for chocolate now, it's too late for that lolly, you can have a strawberry instead, So that's the redirection. Or we do resort to bribing and all sorts of things. Sometimes you can have a ice cream from Macca's if you've had your healthy dinner first, we go to Canelands for a walk, yes, but then you park 2 kilometers away and make them walk instead of, I don't want to go for a walk. Well, okay, that's all right. We'll go to Canelands then and then let them walk. So that's just sort of redirection in a way. So strategies for positive behavior support may include using clearer methods to communicate, to help them understand, changing their work and home environment to meet their needs by removing the behavioral triggers, adding interesting and enjoyable activities to their routines, Other reinforcement, positive reinforcement, is where we motivate or reward the stimulus present in the response to the behavior. So every time they do something positive, you reinforce that. You give them something to reinforce that. And sometimes it can be something as simple as a hug. because belonging is a huge thing. I was just listening to a guy talking on drug addiction on the weekend and on one of the TED Talks, and he was saying that, and I've heard this before, that in Portugal, they have decriminalized drug abuse. So it's been 12 years since they've done that. So the addicts don't get fined, or there's no jail sentence and stuff like that. So and the drug addiction has gone down as much as 50% in Portugal. So he was talking about drug addiction in the sense that he says if you've had an operation and you've had morphine, morphine is the same thing as opium, as what's the other substance they make from opium?
Crack or cocaine.
Heroin. No, heroin is another one.
Heroin comes from poppies.
No, not ice. Ice is another different. Anyway, but it's from heroin and yeah, heroin I think is the one. But anyway, so if you've had an operation and you've had morphine, morphine is the purest form of heroin. Basically, heroin is the bottom of the barrel. So you say if you've had you've been on medication for a while, why don't because they say if you've smoked heroin 21 days in a row, you're addicted like for life. They go, you know, if you've had it for certain. So it's like a chemical addiction. Like your body gets used to it and then you always crave it. But the argument from the Portuguese researchers, as well as from this guy, is that actually addiction is a social thing. It's not about that, because then everyone that's had an operation will be addicted to morphine. But it's about belonging. It's about being a part of something. That's in positive reinforcement, you know, saying, well, we can go somewhere where you love being if you behave, if you know, or that not shunting our drug addicts into becoming homeless and living on the streets, but having a part of the community and having a place to go and belonging. Instead of negative reinforcement where we remove, where we take things away from them, like, or punish them, you know, with a fine or going to jail or something like that. And behavior support, it's the same thing for positive reinforcement, by just giving a warm hug or just being, and eventually the brain will get used to that. Well, she's making me feel really good. She's supporting me. And then they sort of behave more positively towards you because you keep reinforcing, supporting them. Come in.
Hello. Now, what's
Chapter 3.3, we'll have a chat just now. We're almost through here, so just ensure that all interventions are within the plan and the organization policies and procedures. And this is where we use the behavior support plan, that all that we've mentioned already, observations, the triggers, the environmental, the well-being, the medical things, medication, all of these things will go into the behavior support plan at the end. And ongoing records about how it reflects on the client. You know, how did it go? How does it work? Is it supporting them? Respond to behaviors of concern. Once the triggers and the behaviors are identified, the plan must be adapted to address and resolve the issues. And this should involve discussions between the carers, the care home managers, the family, and the person with the disability themselves. They get included, and then they discuss all of these things. So chapter 3.4, follow organizations' policies and procedures to ensure to stay safe, the safety of yourself and other people. All organization procedures is all established and designed to cover all circumstances and eventualities. Make sure that you're aware of all the procedures that will impact your role. So the policies and procedures, a thick manual, about this thick, you know, go through it. Some of the smaller companies have maybe bit less, but specifically with
the.
is it all about that big? Yeah. Heaps of policies and stuff. Shiny, let's go. Finish, we want to go home. Make sure that you're aware of the ones that impact your role, because otherwise, you know, you do something wrong and you don't even know it. So, chapter 3.5, respond to critical incidents according to organization interventions and notifications of policies and procedures. So, critical incidents are those incidents when somebody's gotten hurt. Okay, when there's been any type of physical altercation or somebody's got hurt, that's a critical incident report. When you had to call 000, that's critical. So if somebody has a big fall, there's blood everywhere, they bump their head, that's a critical incident.
What about if you walk into a room and the person's already deceased in the bed? Is that critical?
If they're already deceased, no, that's just gone, yeah.
They're gonna have be called critical, they'll be called deceased.
Yeah, you're not going to call 000 on somebody who's already passed, no. But you call 000 if somebody has had, you know, a big skin tear, or if they've had a big fall, they've thrown a hip, or, you know, they've attacked somebody and that person's got a broken arm, or, you know, anything like that. So, or the person threatens suicide or threatens to harm somebody else, you may have to call 000, call the police to come and help you in those incidents. That's part of the crisis management. So generally, crisis management will be triggered after that, or should be triggered after that. It's not always like that in aged care facilities specifically. It should be, but there's not always that crisis management after, where they actually support you to go through counseling or something because you've witnessed somebody getting hurt, or you had to call 000. Yeah, and you save them life, but you still have to work through those things. And it does affect us, as I said. But in an event of unexpected behavior, you should have a crisis management plan available. If you've got somebody that's got generally out there behaviors that is generally have led already before to crisis situations, there will be this crisis management support. It may mean that the doctor is on standby or the psychologist is on standby. So you can call them straight away to come and help you in certain situations. It's usually a reactive strategy, which clearly tells the staff how to respond during this undesirable behavior episodes. The role of the strategy is to keep the people safe and de-escalating the situation. Use of basic self-protective strategies. You should always, you are number one. Okay, your client's number two, the nurse is number two, you are number one. Look out for number one. Make sure the door's open if there's somebody that is aggressive. If you're working with dementia, you walk in wild eyes. Look out for those. You can't always predict. You can't always see if somebody's going to act out. Sometimes it happens without any warning. But most of the time, there is little clues that this person's going to do something. Okay, but always put yourself first. Your safety is paramount. So you make sure you got a way out. You're not trapped. You make sure you can call somebody to come and help you if you're in a situation. Don't get locked in a corner or trapped in a situation. Make sure that you are being aware of your surroundings and making decisions accordingly. And you can step away and say, I'll see you later. Okay, you can't leave the house. You may have to sit outside the house and call 000 to come, or call your supervisor to come, and keep that person in, you know, sort of in just knowing where they are, maybe even they're not in eyesight, but keeping yourself safe. And if you call 000 because somebody is violent, the first thing they'll ask you, are you safe? Are you in a safe situation, you know? Or go into another room and lock yourself in that room if that person's busy breaking down the house, you know, so you can protect yourself until the police come or whatever. I had a student, he looked after a client, and the client was acting out, and the client started chasing him with some object,
Yeah.
and he got in the car and he's driving and he had little bottles of water with him, and he just kept stop, put the bottle of water out on the road, and just keeping him in the rearview mirror, just slowing with this car and chasing him down the road until support came. And with us, when we work in the community, quite often it is young adults in their 20s that are strong and can be really violent. And the parents are the ones that can come and diffuse the situation. So you have to wait for the parents to come and help you out in that situation. And that might be part of the strategy, in that
What if, for
situation.
instance, that you think you can calm them down before they smash the whole house? Are you allowed to just intervene if you think you can?
If you think you can and you have a strategy to do it,
Like,
you think you can distract him,
Basically, like that.
Yeah.
You have to just keep running out.
As long as you don't put yourself into
Yeah,
jeopardy.
that makes
If
sense.
you can think you can distract him and get
Yeah.
him, like, say, oi, come and look here, I've got
Yeah,
a
that's
ice
like
cream
that.
here or a
It's like
chocolate,
that,
and
but-
he might,
Yeah.
like, oh, and he might snap out of it, but if there's some management, or them well enough
Yeah.
to
Just
distract
notice that,
them
yeah.
or divert them, or by all means. Running away is not always the easiest, and sometimes you probably most probably right, you may be actually employed specifically in a situation where you get court ordered clients that you need to learn to manage.
Basically, exactly right.
And
Running away.
and nobody, somebody needs to deal with it.
Basically,
So
yeah.
sometimes they have, like, if you get a specific client, they may have a specific training
Yeah.
to teach you exactly how to deal with that situation. And they may have some plans in place and saying, well, okay, you're the man for the job because you know how to deal with it. You may distract him, you may, lock him in a soft room. Sometimes restraint is okay if they have been okayed, if they've been prescribed by a doctor, and you can convince him to come into the soft room where there's sensory things in that room, and you can lure him in there and then leave him in there. And those soft rooms will have a window or something where you can watch them while they're sort of getting it out of their system. But in aged care facilities, they don't. So in there, if sometimes, and I have put myself in the middle of it a lot of times because that's just me. I also like a dog with a bone. I don't let it go. Very seldom I'll go, and I've been slapped so many times. But then I'm putting myself in between the client and another client, because I feel like this little old lady behind me, if she gets this chair or this little table hit on her head, she's going to be much worse off than me. So I'm not restraining the client, but I'm holding that table down that he's trying to pick up, and then he goes for something else and he slaps me, and I'm like just standing there. And I've stood there where that same lady that I shot that was 59, she wanted to go out the door, and there was little kids that I was letting out the door. They came to visit somebody, and she started slapping me. She slapped me maybe 50 times, like this, hard on my chest. And I just had to stand there and take it, because if it wasn't me, it was going to be one of the little kids. Yeah. And if I was going to step aside, she was going to be out the door and gone. So the only choice I had was just to take it. So I have taken punches, but if you're willing to take it, then it's on to you. You don't have to. You don't have to. I'm a big girl, so generally, like, I don't.
Sometimes it's just way easier to choose a stroke.
I don't cry. Well, yeah, I mean, but it wasn't like, it was sore, but it wasn't unbearably, it wasn't like, and also because it wasn't directed at me. Sometimes it's different when if somebody comes, I'm gonna hit your head, then it's directed at you instead of get out of my way, just it's not directed at you. It's just
anyone in the class would have been the same thing. She would have slapped anyone.
Yeah, it's not me as a person. She's not angry with me. She just So it's different. Like the feeling that you get when somebody hits you because they've got a menace towards you, and the feeling that you get when somebody hits you because you're just the obstacle in the way is different. Emotionally, you deal with it better. put it that way, you know. It's really hard though, but most of the time, because you're trying to avoid clients hitting each other and you're trying to avoid that type of situation, you may, but you should not really. Your own personal health and safety should be the first thing you think about. And like when I was constantly in that situation, because I'm like I am, and I'm always stepping in, and it's just my personality, that I landed up emotionally burning out, you know. So there should be a crisis support for me or for people like us that does that. So just the monitor strategies. We're talking about positive lifestyle enhancement strategies, motivation, stress management, engaging meaningful activities, support relationship, improve the environments and those environmental systems.
I have one resident that really almost died, didn't respond. As much as I tried, I for 2 years. No matter what I tried, massage, wouldn't work, nothing worked. But when we got introduced to the iPods and the family told me the things that she liked, it was amazing once we put the iPod on her. She started shaking her feet, started moving her head. Her son was just amazed. Okay, can you stop? No, you know, I'm seeing her all over again. Hi, Papa. Hi, Papa.
Huh?
How you doing?
All right, fine.
Who am I? Okay, it's Cherry. How long has he been in the nursing home? Approximately 10 years. He's having seizures. And my mother put his hands on him. Most of it, right? Because he was always, you know, fun loving, singing, you know, every occasion he would come out with a song, no matter where he was. I remember as a child, he used to walk us down the street, me and my brother, and he would stop and he'd sing it in the rain, he had us jumping and swinging around poles. He was, you know, it's good. He was always into music. You know, always loved singing, dancing. His name is Andrea. And looking more or less for religious music for him. Because he enjoys music and he always scored the Bible. So I'd rather have that for him.
We first see Henry inert, maybe depressed, unresponsive, and almost unalive. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
I found your music. What you music now?
Look at his eyes.
Okay. Let's try your music, okay? Then you tell me if it's too loud or not.
Then he is given an iPod containing his favorite music. He starts to sing, to rock, to move his arms, and he's being animated by the music.
And he used to always sit on the unit with his head like this. He didn't really talk to much people. And then when I introduced the music to him, this is his reaction ever since.
Makes her so big. It makes it easy.
And Henry has been brought to life. Yeah.
I'm going to take the music for 1 second, okay? Just to ask you a few questions. Okay? I'm going to give it back to you. Okay.
The effect does not stop, which when the headphones are taken off, Henry normally mute, virtually unable to answer the simplest yes or no questions. It's quite voluble.
Henry,
Yeah.
do you like the iPod? Do you like the music you're hearing?
Yeah.
Tell me about your music.
Well, I don't have one.
Do you like music?
Yeah, I'm crazy about music. And you play beautiful music, beautiful sound. Beautiful.
Did you play music when you were, did you like music when you were young?
Yes, yes, that's big dances and things.
What was your favorite music when you were young?
I guess, Cap Calloway was my number one fan guy I like.
What was your favorite Cab Calloway song?
Oh, oh, Christmas. Oh, you can count plans on me with plenty of snow near the toe. Present, wrap around your tree. Ow.
So in some sense, Leo is restored to himself. He has remembered who he is, and he acquires his identity for a while through the power of music.
What does music do to you?
Give me the feeling of love. Romance. Nigga, right now the world needs to come into music, singing. You got beautiful music here. Beautiful, all love it. And I feel the band of love. Sing. Lord came to me, baby, holy, I'm a holy man. So he gave me this sound. Now they say, I mean you. When they say, Rosalie, won't you love me? Rosalie, kind.
With this beautiful new technology, you can have all the music which is significant for you, something as big as a matchbox or whatever. And I think this may be very, very important in helping to animate, organize, and bring a sense of identity back to people who are out of it. Otherwise, music will bring them back into it, into their own personhood, their own memories, their own autobiographies.
Beautiful, hey? That's amazing. Yeah, look, I've seen this in, I had a client, I might have told you about it. She's an old midwife. So nurses are the hardest.
Oh, they are.
And she used to break TVs and go around, break things all the time. And I knew she was an old Catholic. So I go into her room. She refused. She will just throw you with something. She had Parkinson's, so she had the frontal lobe dementia. And then I go in and I just start singing hymns while I was caring for her. As I was singing the hymns, she'll come with me, have a shower, and then people go, how did you get that right? I had another client, she didn't speak a word. She was just grumbles, like dementia, all she could speak. I put her in a wheelchair, take her to the piano, and I sit her at the piano, and I start singing a song, and then she'll go, and she'll play it. And then perfect music, and then she'll tell me, and she's give me another one, and then I have to start another song, and she just plays amazing. She can't speak a sentence, but she can remember the music when she sits in front of her. People with Parkinson's also, because they jerk like this, if you play music, it helps them to move easier. With the dementia as well, and even with people with autism, if you play music to calm them down, if they're really agitated and they like a specific song or they like some music, then just play that music. If the houses are wind up, when that DT was there in the morning, and I got there at lunch, an afternoon at 3, and everyone's so wind up, I go put the bagpipes on. The bagpipes are just magic. It's just, I don't like bagpipes, but they are magic. You put that on, you sit somebody down, they don't stand up again. They've been wandering and trying to hit each other, and it just calms them down. It's just amazing. Andre Ria is another one. I don't like him at all, but playing his music, it just draws them in, and they just sit there. We landed up getting a projector, and we were projecting up. The projector was put on the roof, and it was projecting on the wall, so they couldn't break the TV anymore. And we would just play music videos for them. all the time. But it has to be music that they like,
From
you
their
know?
era.
There'd be a plan in the kitchenette stand for the kitchen area.
Yeah.
So they can slide in so they can eat.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
eat.
Amazing. And if you are struggling to work with somebody, just try find out what is their music. And if you play their music, you know, it's one of the things, if you get to know a first client, and ask their family what kind of music do they like. And that's a good one to manage behaviors. So identify any changes and report to the person and the behaviors, and consultation with your supervisor. So for us to develop skills and communication opportunities and get direct education, exposing clients to new situations, social intervention, problem solving, physical activities and group activities. These are all things that may be opportunities for us to learn about the client. Talk to their family. Their family are the key. A mum knows best. So just talk to mum if it's a young adult. Talk to the old boys' wives. You know, if you get opportunity, we're not allowed to talk to them about their medical situations, but we can talk about them, who they are as a person, you know. You can ask them, like, what did she like doing? What's the music she like? You know, what's her colors, her favorite colors? Encourage them to bring things in that they're familiar with, because that familiar situation, if they go into a group home, you want to make that room their room. You want their things in there. And people don't think about it. It just goes beyond me why they don't. But if you've had a hobby all your life, you've enjoyed, they're busy putting something up in there. If they used to have some sort of a collection, you know, you have an old boy coming in, he used to collect reels, or he used to love fishing. You know, put a couple of fishing pictures up on his wall. Make it his environment, so that helps him to feel like they belong. And they, you know, it's opportunities to work on these things. If people have any conditions getting worse, sensory difficulties, or any requirements that need to be, you know, that's worsen of the existing conditions, we are following referrals and procedures and consultation with the supervisor. If we may need to refer them, if they go to the psychiatrist, or you may need to go to the diversional therapist, or the OTs are more, the occupational therapists are the ones that work with younger adults, specifically trying to figure out ways to communicate with them better or to deal with certain situations. So we're not alone. We're not the only ones trying to figure this out. We're a team, and we work with these people that they get referred to. And we have to communicate these things. And if you found something that works, it's essential that you pass that on. You know, that you tell the OT and tell the psychiatrist about that. And the referral procedures to specialized services, you know, all these different educational support is another one. Working with specialists, determine the best care and support your client should be, look at the options available against the needs of your client, consult with your supervisor, always discuss these things. And aged care, it's really nice because we have these handovers. So before the shift and after the shift, we always pass things on verbally. Some things you don't want to write in their care plan. So you don't want to write in their progress notes. But we can, you know, I did this today and it worked. Maybe you write it down in your own little notebook and keep a note of it, but pass it on. You know, it might, and again, what might work today might not work tomorrow. But, you know, just pass on the ideas, because you can't always be there. It's nice if you're the only one they want to go shower with. You know, you feel pretty good if somebody's like, oh, you know, I just want you. Oh, yeah, I just want you. But you cannot be there all the time, you know. And if you really want their best interest at heart, you don't want them to suffer for the 2-3 days that you're not there. You do want to pass on your ways or your methods so that the next person can have success. So chapter 4, complete documentation. We've spoken a lot about documentation. It's just a little review. Documentation should always be complete as soon as something happens, as soon as there's a behavior or behavior problem. Written documentation is in the progress notes, case notes, and incident reports. Progress notes are legal documents and should always be an active voice rather than a passive voice. Always concise, objective, by exception, appropriate language and terminology, including only the necessary information. And then verbal reports, these are really important too. And when you've written a behavior, happened, and you have to go and record the behavior. It's normally recorded in a behavior report. You also verbally report it. And when you record it, most of the time there's codes for it. So if it's a behavior of concern, a behavior, unwanted behavior, or complex behavior, then those have got a code to it. And
Could
those
I ask, is the code that they have at Ozcare the same that they have at Blue Care the same?
probably not. No, probably not, but you'll understand it because it will describe the behavior. But why am I mentioning the code? Because the code generates funds. So if that code keeps coming up every time, so if it's generally the behaviors of concern is BC, and then there's a BF and B, whatever code they may use, or 41 or whatever, those codes will be linked to a funding method. So the more often those codes come up, the more support will be generated for that person. So just make sure you actually put the behavior in the right place, when you're recording it. So behavior support or behavior reports are normally have like, it starts off with say, is this a compulsory behavior or compulsory report? And then you go, if nobody else got hurt, then you go no, and then it takes you to the behavior where you report it. If it's compulsory, if somebody else got hurt, then you go yes, and then you forward it to your supervisor. But then you go on to the next stage where it says which behavior, and then your 4 categories will be there: behaviors of concern, complex behaviors, behaviors, I forget the 4 categories, but then the different types of behaviors. And then underneath each of those will be usually it's drop-down boxes that says, okay, these are the types of behaviors, and you usually can just tick it. If not, you just make note or try to make note of, was it a behavior of concern, which is a behavior where they put themselves into harm, or is it a complex behavior that you just don't know how to deal with? They're just doing they play with feces. Or is it a behavior that, a critical behavior that they've actually gone out there and they have actually harmed somebody else? And then, so remember those 3, and then note it in, and then you describe the behavior, exactly what happened. Sometimes behaviors of concern can be repetitive noise or excessive noise, because that sets off somebody else. And tomorrow, when we've got a little scenario where we will go through the triggers and these, the different stages of behaviors. So just make good notes, call your supervisor. Can't stress it more that this is where we get our funding from. This is where we are being enabled to have 2 of us being able to go to that fellow's room and help him to get into the shower, where we didn't have time the first time around. There was too many things to do. There's not enough of us. So if they got the money, they'll employ the people. If they don't have the money, they can't employ the people. That's just as simple as that. Maintain documentation. Maintenance of records should always be in line with the reporting requirements. Ensure that it's kept safe, locked away, and backup for future use, and update it as we need it. So just also include the person you have verbally reported to as well, because that will be the person that can actually do something about it. Whether they have to call the specialist and say, hey, we're not dealing with it. There's another group of people that they call DB Mass, They work with Dementia Australia. So people with young onset dementia, you may have those. They come in and they deal with complex behaviors.
What's it called? DB.
DBMAS.
Oh, DB.
And they then come in and spend hours and hours with that individual and then work out a behavior plan. And that may include sticking pictures of puppies on the wall. And, you know, if that person keeps trying to get out the front door, to paint the front door, or whatever strategies they can think about. And then those will be recorded and kept. And we meant to then try to do those stuff, you know, follow on to do which orders they may have written down for us. Okay, and that's the end of this recording. Any questions?